At my grandparents' anniversary, my cousin Zoe was suddenly accused of destroying an expensive gift in front of everyone. Emotions ran wild as family turned on her with zero proof, and I had to step in before things spiraled. The truth that came out later shocked everyone and completely flipped the accusations. This night went from celebration to chaos in minutes. Sir, this all went down at my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary last month. Big deal, right? Golden anniversary, fancy catered dinner, rented hall at this country club in our town. Everyone showed up dressed like it was a mini wedding, and honestly the vibe was good at first. I was sitting at the table with my cousin Zoe 30F, my brother Matt 28M, and our Aunt Karen the self-appointed family sheriff. Zoe and I have always been close. She's the type who's quiet at family gatherings, but she's got this dry sense of humour if you actually sit with her. The drama started after dessert when Grandpa and Grandma were opening gifts. Someone had gotten them this huge, ornate vase. It looked expensive, like something you'd see in an old mansion. It was placed on a side table near the front, right by the dance floor. Everyone kept walking by it, and honestly, I was nervous someone would bump into it. Sure enough, about an hour into the dancing, I hear this huge crash. Music cuts, everyone gasps, and there's the vase smashed into what looked like 1,000 pieces on the floor. Before anyone even processed what happened, Aunt Karen's voice cut through the silence. Zoe, what did you do? Everyone's head snapped to her. Zoe, who had literally been sitting 2 chairs away from me at our table, froze like a deer in headlights. What? She said, confused. I didn't. What are you talking about? Karen marched over, pointing like she just solved a crime. You were hovering around that table earlier. I saw you. No one else would have been clumsy enough to knock it over. I swear the room just turned on Zoe. A couple of relatives started whispering. Someone muttered, she's always so careless, which pissed me off because that wasn't true at all. Zoe's face went red, but not the guilty kind, more like humiliated. I wasn't even near. I've been at the table with everyone else. She looked at me and Matt like she needed backup. Matt jumped in immediately. Yeah, she's been sitting here. I literally watched her the whole time. She didn't get up. But Aunt Karen wasn't letting it go. Don't cover for her. That vase was worth thousands, and your grandparents deserve better than to have their gift destroyed by her carelessness. The worst part. Grandma looked disappointed. Not angry, not yelling, just this hurt look, like she thought it might be true. And Zoe saw it. Her eyes started watering, but she clenched her jaw like she was trying to hold it together. Meanwhile, the room was still buzzing with whispers, and instead of anyone checking if maybe someone else had bumped it, all eyes stayed locked on Zoe. That's when I knew I had to do something. Because no matter what happened, letting her take the blame for something she didn't do was not an option. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Music was still off, people were standing around like it was a courtroom instead of a party, and Zoe looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. I got up and said, louder than I intended, hold on, nobody even knows what happened yet. Can we maybe not just throw blame around? Aunt Karen whipped around, arms crossed. Then explain it, because that vase didn't just jump off the table by itself. Zoe muttered, maybe it got bumped during the dancing. Her voice was shaky but firm. Karen scoffed. Oh, please, stop making excuses. Everyone saw you hanging near the gifts earlier. That was technically true. Zoe had been near the table earlier in the night because she helped me put my card in the box. But Karen twisted it like she'd been plotting a vase smash. At that point, my brother Matt spoke up. Seriously, Karen, you're reaching. Zoe hasn't left this table in over an hour. I'd bet money someone dancing bumped into it. Look how close it was to the edge. I added, yeah, not to mention it was stupid to put a giant fragile thing right next to a dense floor. That made a couple of cousins chuckle nervously, but Karen's glare could have set me on fire. Meanwhile, Zoe just sat there, her hands clenched in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. I leaned down and whispered, don't worry, I know you didn't do it. We'll figure this out. She nodded slightly but didn't say anything. Then, like a bad TV drama, Uncle Rob jumped in. Karen's right. I saw Zoe walking near there not too long ago. She's always been careless. That word again, careless. It was like the family had collectively decided that was Zoe's brand. And the more people said it, the more others started to buy into it. Finally, Zoe snapped. She stood up so fast her chair screeched. Enough, I didn't touch the stupid vase. You all want a scapegoat, and apparently that's me. But I swear on my life, I had nothing to do with it. The room went quiet again. I could see Grandma clutching Grandpa's hand, looking torn. Grandpa finally said, we shouldn't point fingers without proof. Karen looked like she'd just been betrayed. Proof? The proof is on the floor. No, I said, my voice shaking but loud. The proof would be someone actually seeing her knock it down, which no one did, unless you've got eyes in the back of your head, Karen. There were a few murmurs of agreement this time, which gave me a bit of courage. But Karen wasn't done. Fine, if Zoe didn't do it, then who did? That was $1 million question. Everyone looked around suspiciously, but no one said a word. It felt like the whole celebration had flipped into a whodunit. And that's when Matt whispered to me, wait, I think I know who was near it. When Matt whispered that, I snapped my head toward him. Who? I hissed. He leaned closer. During the speeches, I saw little Lily running around near the gift table. She almost knocked into it then. Nobody noticed because everyone was clapping. Lily is our cousin's kid, 6 years old and basically a tornado with legs. Sweet, but zero awareness of her surroundings. I glanced at Zoe. She was still standing, arms crossed tightly over her chest, trying to look strong even though I could tell she was seconds away from breaking down. I whispered back, so say it. Matt shook his head. You know how this family is. Nobody wants to blame the kid. It'll just make things worse. But I couldn't sit there and watch Zoe get crucified for something she didn't do. So I cleared my throat and said, actually there was someone near the gift table earlier. I saw Lily running around over there. Instantly, you could feel the energy in the room shift. My cousin Sarah, Lily's mom, stiffened like she'd just been slapped. Excuse me? Are you seriously accusing my child? Heron jumped on it immediately. Oh, come on, don't drag the kids into this. We all know Zoe's history of being clumsy. Zoe's voice cracked. I don't have a history. You've just decided I'm the family screw-up because I don't talk as much as everyone else. That hit hard. Even Grandma's eyes widened at that. But Sarah wasn't letting go. Lily would never do something like that. She's careful. I cut in. Sarah, with all due respect, your daughter once spilled red punch on my white dress shirt at Christmas and laughed. She's 6, she's not careful. A couple of people chuckled, but Sarah's face turned bright red. So what are you saying? That my child destroyed a precious face? I'm saying, I shot back, that maybe it wasn't Zoe, and maybe it was just an accident. Maybe Lily bumped it without realizing. The room buzzed with murmurs again. You could practically hear people shifting sides. Some nodding, some shaking their heads. That's when Lily herself, sitting at the kids' table, piped up in her tiny voice. I didn't mean to. It was too close to the edge. You could have heard a pin drop. Sarah's face went pale. Karen's jaw actually fell open. Zoe whispered, almost too quiet to hear. Oh my God. See? I said, my hand shaking. She didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident, but Zoe has been getting shredded for the last half hour for something she didn't do. Grandpa finally raised his voice, which he almost never does. That's enough. Nobody should be falsely accused in this family. Zoe, I'm sorry this happened to you. For the first time all night, Zoe actually looked up, her eyes watery but defiant. But the damage was already done because now it wasn't just about the vase. It was about how fast the family had been ready to turn on her. The silence after Lily's little confession was brutal. Everyone just stood there, frozen, like nobody knew how to hit play again. Then, as if on cue, Karen let out this bitter laugh. You're really going to take the word of a 6-year-old? She probably doesn't even understand what she's saying. I snapped back before I could stop myself. Karen, she understands enough to know she knocked the vase over. That's more honesty than I've heard from you tonight. Karen's face went red, and I swear if it looks good, I'd have been 6 feet under. Meanwhile, Sarah swooped down to Lily, whispering fiercely. Sweetheart, you didn't do it, right? You're just confused. But Lily looked up, all big-eyed and innocent, and said, I was dancing, and I touched the table, then it went boom. There it was. The truth clear as day, out of the mouth of a kid. Zoe just stood there trembling, and finally she said, So everyone spent an hour tearing me apart over nothing. Her voice cracked halfway through, and my stomach just dropped. She wasn't yelling, she wasn't dramatic, she just sounded hollow. Grandma, bless her, finally stood up and walked to Zoe. She put a hand on her shoulder. I should have defended you. I'm sorry, dear. But Zoe flinched away. No, don't. You didn't believe me either. None of you did. You all looked at me like I was a criminal because of a stupid vase. The whole room went dead quiet again. Nobody wanted to meet her eyes. Then she turned on Karen. And you've hated me since I was a kid, always calling me clumsy, careless, whatever. You wanted me to be guilty because that's the story you've always told about me. Karen sputtered. That's not true. I was just a... But Zoe cut her off. Louder now. No, you made everyone think of me as a screw-up cousin, and tonight you finally got your proof. Except it wasn't me. It was a child who made a mistake, and everyone was so eager to believe you that they didn't even give me a chance. Her voice cracked again, but she pushed on. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? In front of my grandparents, my whole family, at their anniversary. Karen actually looked rattled, which almost never happens. But instead of apologizing, she crossed her arms and muttered, Fine, believe what you want. That was a breaking point. Zoe grabbed her purse, eyes shiny with unshed tears, and said, I'm done. I'm not staying here while everyone pretends this didn't just happen. I called after her, Zoe, wait, but she didn't. She walked right out of the hall, head held high even though I knew she was barely holding it together. The celebration limped along after that, but it was ruined. The music came back. People danced half-heartedly, but the energy was dead. Nobody could ignore the storm that had just blown through. Amy? I couldn't stop thinking about how fast everyone had turned on her and how they said more about this family than the broken vase ever could. The next day, the aftermath hit like a wave. Zoe hadn't answered my texts or calls, and I could tell she needed space. Honestly, I didn't blame her. Who wants to be dragged through a public shaming, even if it wasn't technically social media? Grandma called me around new. We need to make things right, she said, her voice trembling. I feel awful about how quickly everyone blames Zoe. I agreed. Yeah, but it's more than that. Grandma, she said she feels like the whole family thinks she's guilty of everything. Grandpa sighed. I saw that look on her face. I've never seen her like that, and I've been around for a lot of family gatherings. Meanwhile, Aunt Karen was, well, Karen. She hadn't apologized or even admitted she was wrong. In fact, she sent me a text that read, Zoe needs to toughen up. She can't just cry over every little thing. I couldn't even respond. Matt and I decided to go visit Zoe later that day. We found her at her apartment, curled up on the couch with Lily's leftover cupcakes from the party scattered around like armor. When she saw us, she tried to put on a brave face, but the tears were already forming. I didn't mean to disappear, she whispered. I can't deal with everyone thinking I'm some kind of monster. Zoe, I said, kneeling in front of her, you're not a monster. You were blamed for something you didn't do. That's on them, not you. Matt nodded. Seriously, I don't know how anyone could believe that vase story. Everyone just went with the first narrative they liked. She hugged us both tightly. Thanks, you do. I feel like this family sees the worst in me sometimes. We spent a long while talking, unpacking every little moment from the night before. It was cathartic, even if it didn't magically fix things with the rest of the family. Later, Grandma and Grandpa showed up at her door with flowers and a small handwritten note from everyone who felt guilty. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Zoe accepted the gesture, though she made it clear, I appreciate this, but I'm still not over how easily everyone turned on me. I understood completely. The thing about false accusations is that even when the truth comes out, the emotional damage lingers. By the end of the evening, Zoe was calmer. She even laughed a little when Grandpa made a bad joke about the vase, which was the first genuine smile I'd seen since the disaster. But I could tell she was still processing. Matt and I left her apartment that night feeling relieved that at least she was safe and supported. Still, the family gathering would go down in history as one of the worst experiences Zoe and frankly, a lot of us had ever had. And one thing was clear, nothing about that night would be forgotten anytime soon. The vase was broken, yes, but so was the fragile trust in how quickly the family could jump to conclusions. A week later, the family tried to make amends, though you could tell it was half-hearted at best. Grandma invited everyone over for a casual dinner, insisting it was just a small get-together. The underlying tension, however, was palpable. Zoe arrived reluctantly, arms folded at first, keeping her distant. I could tell she was mentally preparing herself for any subtle jabs or whispers. Matt and I thanked her, acting like her buffer while she navigated the minefield of apologies and awkward smiles. Grandma approached first, giving her a warm hug. I hope you know we all regret what happened at the anniversary, she said. It was wrong to assume, and I'm so sorry for any hurt we caused. Zoe nodded stiffly. Thank you, Grandma, that means a lot. Her voice was calm but guarded. Then came Aunt Karen. Oh, Aunt Karen. She shuffled forward, hands in pockets, clearly uncomfortable. Oh, Zoe, I guess I overreacted about the vase. Sorry for accusing you. Her eyes flicked to the floor. Zoe stared at her for a long moment before replying. You didn't just overreact, Karen. You let everyone think I was guilty without proof. That's not just an overreaction, that's betrayal, but I'll accept your apology. Karen blinked, clearly not expecting that level of honesty. The room felt heavy with unspoken tension, but the acknowledgement of wrongdoing seemed to lift the small weight off Zoe's shoulders. Dinner progressed, and slowly, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. I watched Zoe relax a little, laughing at Grandpa's bad jokes and Matt's exaggerated stories. It was like watching someone reclaim little pieces of themselves that had been stomped on. Later, Zoe took a moment to talk to me privately. You know, I realized something, she said, voice quite but firm. Even if everyone had turned against me, I can't let them decide who I am. I know the truth, and that's what matters. The vase incident doesn't define me. I smiled. Exactly, then honestly, standing up for yourself like you did, calling out Karen, explaining your side, that's more than most people could handle. She grinned, a little mischievously. Yeah, but I'd rather avoid vases near dance floors in the future. Lesson learned. By the end of the night, there was still some tension lingering, but Zoe walked out of the dinner holding her head high. It wasn't just about surviving the accusation, it was about reclaiming her dignity, showing that she wouldn't be the scapegoat again. The vase may have been broken, but the real damage had been to trust and reputation, and Zoe had started fixing that. For the first time in days, she seemed like herself again, confident, witty, and unapologetically Zoe. The family drama wasn't over, they never is, but she had proven one undeniable truth. No false accusation, no matter how public or humiliating, could define her. As we left, I glanced back at her laughing with Grandpa and Nat. I knew it was going to take a while for the full healing to happen, but seeing her smile like that, it was enough. A month passed, and things had slowly started to settle. Zoe had been making it clear that she wasn't going to let anyone undermine her again, and the family, well, they were learning to tread more carefully around her. Grandma and Grandpa had invited us all over for a small peace dinner to sort of acknowledge the anniversary chaos without making it a repeat event. Zoe agreed to come, but she set the tone immediately, confident, firm, and unapologetically herself. Even Aunt Karen seemed to get the hint. She approached Zoe hesitantly, this time without the usual judgmental glare. Zoe, I just want you to know I really am sorry. I shouldn't have blamed you without knowing what happened. Zoe studied her for a beat, then gave a small nod. Thank you, Karen. Apology accepted. Just let's not make a habit of it. The room relaxed noticeably after that. Conversations flowed, people laughed at silly stories, and the tension that had been suffocating us all finally eased. I caught Zoe's eye across the table, and she smiled real, unguarded, the kind that said she'd survived the storm and come out stronger. Later, she pulled me aside. You know, it's kind of weird, she said softly. The vase incident, it was awful, but it also reminded me who actually has my back, and that's worth more than any family drama. I nodded. Exactly, you didn't need everyone to believe you to know the truth, then you survived one of the most humiliating nights in living memory. Even the younger cousins seemed to sense the shift. They came up to Zoe shyly and said, I'm sorry about the vase. Zoe knelt down, smiling gently. It's okay, sweetie, accidents happen, just be careful next time. That small interaction summed up everything about Zoe's resilience. She could forgive, but she wouldn't forget the lessons learned. By the end of the night, the family had moved past the immediate fallout. Zoe's reputation had been restored, her dignity intact, and the underlying lesson was clear: jumping to conclusions and assigning blame without proof only fractures trust. Walking home, I thought about how quickly things had escalated at the anniversary celebration. One broken vase had turned a joyful night into a battlefield of false accusations, hurt feelings, and public humiliation. But Zoe had weathered it all. She had faced the whispers, the judgment, and the outright hostility and came out unbroken. For her, this wasn't just about a vase. It was about asserting her identity, proving her integrity, and showing the family that she wouldn't be anyone's scapegoat. And in a weird way, the vase incident had changed us all. We'd been forced to confront our assumptions, our eagerness to believe the worst, and our readiness to judge without proof. Most importantly, we'd learned something about Zoe. She wasn't just the quiet cousin or the careless cousin. She was smart, brave, and capable of standing her ground even when the whole family seemed against her. As we said goodnight, Zoe gave me a look that said everything. No words were needed. She'd survived the storm, and she was stronger for it. The vase was gone, but Zoe's place in the family and her sense of self remained unshaken.